says it is 6 o'clock, so I will call this meeting to order. And we only have 2 people in the gallery, but I'm still going to read our live council meeting being recorded message, which is that all personal information, including image, voice, names, opinions, any other personal information being disclosed by anyone is collected by the city under the Freedom of Information Protection Privacy Act for purposes of participation in the public input. So if you are uncomfortable with this or you have any questions, you can talk to our deputy CAO or you cannot participate. So that's it. When we get to public input, if you want to speak, just put your hand up and we will get to you. And that is now. So it's public input. If anybody wants to speak. I don't see any hands up. But I'm going to give it just a second because sometimes there's a tiny bit of a delay. So wait there just a second. I'm going to say no public input participants tonight. And I would like a motion to approve the agenda. Terry and Janice, all in favor of the agenda? Okay, we have no petitions or delegations, but we have some minutes to adopt. So first up, special meeting on September 7th. May I have a mover and a seconder? We've got Andy and Chris. Any comments on that? Call the question. All in favor? Okay. Minutes of the regular meeting on the 7th, a mover and a seconder. Janice and Andy, any comments on those? All in favor? Okay, and minutes of the Heritage Commission, and that was on the 13th, the mover. Come on, somebody put your hand up. Dirk and Chris, good boys there, that's good. Okay, any comments? All in favor? Okay, thank you. And the last special meeting on September 14th, and that these be adopted, a mover. Terry and Andy, any comments? All in favor? Okay, good. Okay, now first up, we have a request for a decision on a zoning amendment 2764. This is P1, public and institutional, changing. This is for first and second reading and for a public hearing on the 18th. Can I have a mover? This is for the drill hall changes. A mover, and that's Chris. Seconder is Andy. Any discussion on this? Chris? Nope. Andy? Nope, nothing. Okay. Great to see it. Great to see it happen. And we do know this leisure facility will be for everything in public and institutional. So that's the change we got here. Okay, all in favor? Okay. Now we have another zoning amendment. This is 2765, and this is for 1723 Victoria Avenue, going from R1 to R1 infill. First and second reading, and also that a public hearing is set for the 18th. Do I have a mover? Dirk and Terry, any comments?
I think my only comment was elevators in the buildings doesn't seem like it's helping us with our affordable housing strategy, but I like density.
Well, as private property, private developer, that's their choice, right? Okay, Stuart.
Yeah, I just had a question to staff regarding that this has sort of been used as a rock quarry for the last year. Is this certainly some of the people that live in that neighbourhood have expressed concerns. Is there any reason that this is not appropriate, or I'd just like staff's perspective on that matter. Is that something that we should consider doing something about?
Call on Stacy to respond.
We have done something about it. Yes, he has received notification, a bylaw enforcement notice, so it's not permitted what he's doing on that lot. So he has received notification of that.
Excellent.
Okay, thanks. Okay, Dirk.
Are there any impediments to rezoning until that is dealt with? Like, is there something that needs to be done?
No, now he has to apply for the cut and fill, but that depends. That application is dependent on what he gets approved for zoning is how much dirt he's allowed to remove. So he has a stop work order on there now, and probably if this zoning goes through, then he'll submit an application for like development or removing dirt or whatever is required.
Any other questions? Anybody? I'm going to call the question. Oh, Andy, are you voting or you speak?
No, just Stacy. So he's been in contravention really since day one then in that project. Just kind of wondering how that unfolded.
Well, you're allowed to go on your land and explore. So generally, a lot of people will dig just to see what the foundations might look like, or I mean, that's pretty common. But when he was in contravention is when he was removing that much dirt from the site. We have our cut and fill bylaw, which prevents that. So he's contravention of that and then selling it like a commercial enterprise from that site. So that's
Okay.
what he's in contravention of.
Okay, good to know. Thanks.
Are there penalties attached to that, or is it just a stop work order and do the right thing?
For now, it's just a stop work order.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. Okay, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Okay. Okay, so then next up, we have a request for a zoning amendment 2768, and this is for 2444A on 3rd Avenue. So this is another infill, first and second reading, and a public hearing. Mover and a seconder, Andy and Stu. Comments, Andy? Okay, Stu? Anybody?
No, it seems appropriate sort of use.
Okay, Dirk?
It looks like they're gonna have to remove a lot of trees. Does that trigger anything in our tree management bylaw? In
Stacy?
terms of replacements and,
No, I don't believe the lot's large enough for that.
oh, okay, right.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to call the question there. If there's no further comments, all in favor? Okay, we are just whipping through this agenda, people. Okay, so now we have a request for our decision, the tree management bylaw 2769. This is for adoption. We discussed this one at our last meeting, trying to give some clarity to the community and maintain our ambiance. Do I have a mover for adoption? Dirk and Stuart, and do we have any comments? Do you want to speak to this? All good? Okay, I'm going to, and Andy, do you want to speak?
Just wanted to note just out of interest sake, in a drought summer like we've just had, I'm not sure if folks have noticed, just about every cedar in town is stressed and losing its leaves right now. So it's just another reason why these are important. You know, we're certainly, climate change is a reality, as we all know, and this kind of situation this summer has just exacerbated the issue, and the importance of our tree canopy, you know, can't be stressed enough. So yeah, it's really important that we go ahead with this, and if anything, we make sure that we maintain our tree canopy as much as possible.
Yeah.
That's all I noted.
Okay, thanks. Okay, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Okay, and opposed? Okay, Janice is opposed. All right, and now we have our policy of community contributor award, and that the staff recommendation is that we approve it as presented. Do I have a mover? Janice, and a seconder? Dirk? Okay, any comments on this one? We need to get it out there and get people to nominate somebody. That's good. Okay. And I think when we do get this, now that it's been approved, if counselors would all share it on their social media, I'm going to put it in the newsletter, but share on your social media to remind people that we want to get applications in for that. Okay, so then we have, we did vote on that, right? No, we didn't vote on that. Sorry, I'm going to call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, and opposed? Nobody opposed. Okay, so we have the next one up, policy review, information on our media policy. And this is that we approve it as presented. A mover? Okay, Terry, and a seconder is Andy. Any comments? No, Dirk?
Yeah, I didn't like the bit about prohibiting employees from giving opinions. I feel like employees should not want to give opinions, and it's the onus is on council and management to foster a better working environment such that opinions like that don't need to be given. And often if there is an opinion like that, there is some root of truth or something to be delved into. I'm not keen on policies that limit that kind of talk.
Okay, if you want to think of an amendment, but I'm going to let Janice speak.
Well, I was just going to say, and it addresses Dirk's concern directly. So, you know, it's not so much that this isn't about muzzling our employees. Our employees are free to speak as individuals to us or to anyone they want to. It's more a matter of making sure that, you know, an employee who may be talking to the media, who may not have all the background because it might be in a slightly different, just might not be read into the whole file, could form an opinion that doesn't actually encompass all the information. I think that you know, the way it's set up now, where the employee asks, if the employee is approached by a media person, they take down the questions, they work out the answers, they run it through senior management. That just is a check and balance to make sure that all the information is getting out and the employee isn't misspeaking. It's not about, and we call it opinions because, you know, well, I think, yeah, we just call those opinions. It doesn't mean our employees won't have them, but it also doesn't mean that we're muzzling them. It just means we want to make sure that as a city, we get information out correctly to the media.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would also say that, you know, when an employee is speaking to the media in their capacity as a city representative, they are representing the city. And if they're not, if they're presenting their own views, which might be different from what the city has determined as policy or a council decision, it's not really appropriate. So I would agree, they can speak any way they wish elsewhere, but not when they're in a capacity of speaking to the media, you know, representing the city. So, okay, any other comments on that one? Or I'm going to call the question. Unless, Dirk, you want to make an amendment.
Nope, I get the sense that an amendment I make wouldn't fly. I think it struck me that there are two different parts of this. One is, to me, reasonable, that if approached by the media, you answer the question, research it if you have to, talk to the people that might know. This seemed to be a different avenue in that the opinion part. So, yeah, anyway.
Okay. Okay. Just because you think your amendment might not fly is not a good reason not to do it if you want. I mean, we all have the ability and the freedom to bring forward anything you wish. The fact that it might not fly is something to consider. But if you want to do it, I would encourage you to do it, right? Because we want everyone to be able to express themselves and see where things go. You never know, the people here didn't speak, they might totally agree with you. Dirk.
I would make the amendment then on the assumption that giving an opinion about something at the city is different than answering a question, researching it, and what Janice had pointed out. So I would like to scrub that prohibited from giving an opinion, and then lay trust in staff that they will adequately research and answer the question appropriately. I think that is fully acceptable. Saying, media, what's your question? I'll go answer it, versus stifling giving an opinion.
Okay, let's see if there's a seconder for that. Seconder to have discussion. Okay, Andy will second for discussion. And then Andy, do you want to comment on it? And then I'm going to go to Stu because he had his hand up.
No, go to Stu. I think I hear where Dirk's going, so you know, I'd like to continue the conversation, I think.
Okay, Stuart.
Yeah, I just don't think it's appropriate for people to give their personal opinions. They might have all sorts of bizarre ideas on all sorts of things. I don't think we want people expressing that in their official capacity as a city employee. I mean, they're more than welcome to share their, you know, the facts of the situation. Their opinions could be anything at all. I don't think we want to open up that can of worms.
Okay, anybody else want to speak on this, or I'm going to call the question on the amendment? Janice.
I guess I would just say that, yeah, I see your point about the wording, Dirk, absolutely. But I think this is one of those policies that you know, allows us to protect both employees and the city from anything that was misspoken. As individuals not representing the city, they're free to give any opinion they want, and they do, which is great. I love to hear their opinions. But if they're representing the city in an interaction with the media, I think all of us should just avoid giving our opinions and stick to the facts as we know them.
Okay, I'm going to call the question on, oh, Terry, you want to speak?
Well, just that the wording in there says that it's prohibited from giving opinions to the media. And I think the intent there again is to protect everybody. So the intent is to keep us generally out of hot water, but not to deny opinions amongst ourselves. So I'd go along with it as written.
Okay. I'm going to call the question on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment, striking out the prohibition on opinions? Okay, Dirk, and opposed? Sorry, Dirk, I think everybody is. Okay, so the amendment fails, but back to the policy itself. And we can vote on that unless there's any further discussion. All in favor of the policy as written? Okay, okay, valid try, Dirk, valid try. Okay, utility water leak adjustment policy, and staff is suggesting that we approve it as presented. No changes here. Mover? Dirk and Janice, any comments on this one? No, okay. I'll call the question here. All in favor? Okay. Okay, and now we've got community event sign, and this is that we approve it as amended. Okay, so do I have a mover? Janice moves, Andy seconds. Janice, you want to speak to it?
Yeah, just a little bit. I know we got some communication asking for free use for community groups, but I don't think that's appropriate to give everyone a free for all there. I think that if someone has a worthy cause and they want to bring it forward to council on a timely basis so that we can make that decision, I don't think that's something that we want to dump on staff to deal with. I think that needs to be run through council. But I did note that in the policy, it does state that that groups can use the sign to communicate messages to the community. So it's not just about sanctions events or events. It is about communicating information that maybe they feel is important to the community. So if the sign is available, then it can be used. So I'm happy with the amendment and how the policy is written currently.
Okay, other comments?
I'm going to agree with that. I think that it was unfortunate kind of how that last issue unfolded about, a community group wanting to get free access to it. I don't think we need to do that unless it's really unusual or circumstances, and maybe it could be argued that particular situation was. But again, I think council discretion is important. And as Janice pointed out, timely application too, if folks are interested or want to pursue that route. So yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay, good. Anybody else? Okay, I got a couple things. I apologize because staff asked us for input to it before this meeting, and I, for one, did not provide any. And then I read it and went, oh shoot, I would like to change a couple things. Under the policy scope section, it says, the whole thing about eligibility limited to governments, community service, blah, 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 not for profit. And then it says, which are from the Roslyn area. I think it should also say, which are from or operate within the Roslyn area. So that'd be the first little addition I would make, because some of them, they're not necessarily actually from Roslyn, but they're operating within here. So I think that makes sense. Janice's comment about event sanction. I mean, they're not necessarily things sanctioned. Sometimes it is just messages. I would add, so there's that one, operate within, I'd add that. The other thing I would add is just a little thing that council has the authority to waive the rental fee, just to put that in there. But it has to come to council for us to make that decision. And the last thing, I think the amendment is a little too limited. I think it should simply say, city staff are permitted to post relevant messages on the community event sign for any purpose without charge or revenue. Like the city staff, it doesn't have to be provincially or federally declared health emergencies. It can be anything that the city wants to say. I don't think we should limit ourselves. We might find other things to talk about, like forest fires or, whatever. Staff, you want to comment there?
Yeah, so the way that number 6 is written right now, our city staff are permitted. So if we remove the provincial and federal, that is putting that onto city staff to decide what we consider relevant. And I'll just give you some examples of what came to staff this year. Requests included COVID, vaccinations, Black Lives Matter, defund the police, and then the recent Stop the Harm. And those were just the ones that jump out at me when I'm thinking offhand. So the preference would be that either we keep that post as is and we add an additional one that's that city council can overwrite that cost or put regarding any message, or that we reword that writing in there.
Okay, you could leave it, you could leave provincial or federally declared emergencies, or just say staff can do it for any purpose with council approval. Then that would cover provincially, federally declared. Or no, you want to be able to do the federally declared health
Yes.
emergencies without approval.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, I think if city staff, either thinks of something yourself, or if a group comes, whatever, and that's appropriate to come to council, then put it in there, the council could approve it, right? It doesn't have to be, I don't know, that limited, I think, because it's a really great mechanism to communicate with the community. And I think it sort of does a disservice to the community to make it so narrow that these other things can't come. I agree, they need to come and get council approval, but I'd like to see that. Maybe it is just another little bullet point that says, I don't know, the sign can be used with council approval for other matters, undetermined, leave it open. What does anybody think about that? Andy?
A little concerned that it could just cause a lot more work for staff first, because it's got to go through them first and then back to us. And putting in the option of charging or not charging under council discretion is also going to add considerably to staff efforts. My guess is just about anybody would want it for free. So we'd have to go through that process. That's the only concern with kind of advertising that in a policy. Yeah, I'm not sure about that. Kind of confused whether it's of value to go there, to just kind of opening it up more.
Well, I'd rather have everyone know they have the option to ask for it than just have sort of the secret few know the inside they could ask for it. So I mean, if they want to ask for it, I don't know that everyone, I mean, maybe everyone would, but I don't know, maybe they wouldn't. I mean, a group like Moms Start the Harm that has no budget, no money, right? Makes sense. A different group that has a budget, we'd probably say no, I don't know. Any other, so I've proposed, what have I proposed here? I've proposed three things. Let me just go back to the first and see if there's any appetite for it, I think, rather than do all three. So the first one was just to add, which are from or operate within the Roslyn area. Is that an amendment that anybody would want to see in there? Andy says yes. Okay, so let's make that an amendment. We'll amend that. Terry seconds it. Let's just vote on that little amendment. All in favor of adding that? Okay, that one goes. And then the next one I suggested was that we would add that council has the authority to waive the rental fee. So that's the one that Andy was talking about. So let's put that one up, see if there's a seconder, and we'll talk about it. So is there a second? Okay, Dirk seconds. Okay, so Dirk, what do you think?
Honestly, I'd be keen to waive the rental fees. If we're using rental fees as a gatekeeper for who we want to support, putting their information on the sign, things like anti-abortion groups are extraordinarily well funded. I think it comes down to, we support community groups by allowing them to put that on there. And if it's something that we don't agree with, then we just say no. The $50 is not we're gonna have to say no regardless. So,
Yeah, I don't think that is a gatekeeper. I don't think that, I think those are two separate things.
I think waiving the fees for local groups makes a lot of sense.
Okay, so the way I've added to it here, it would come to council to make that decision. So we wouldn't just give a blanket waiver to everyone. It would come to us and we decide whether we waive it or not. So that's the way it's sitting right now. Janice and then Stu.
Oh, clicked on the wrong thing. Yeah, I don't, you know, we could end up with all sorts of people. It's going to add a bunch of work every time it comes to us. Staff needs to write a report about it. I mean, I know that I'm involved with a group who rents the sign on an annual basis. We have a budget, we can afford it. And I'm sure that we would argue that, you know, we bring a whole bunch of people into town that bring economic benefits and. But realistically, the $50 is, it just helps pay for maintenance of that sign on an annual basis and look after it. And, you know, a little bit of staff time as they try and make our message, which is always way too long, fit in the very limited amount of space it has. And so, you know, I think that it should be an exceptional circumstance for us to be discussing waiving a $50 fee.
We could add, council has the authority to waive rental fees in exceptional circumstances. I'm going to call on Stu and then go to staff and then Andy. Stu, you're up.
Sorry, it was taking a while to unmute. We can do that anyway. I mean, anyone can always come to us and ask us to waive the fees for anything, and we have that authority regardless. I think putting it out there in a policy and letting people know just invites people to create a whole lot of work for staff and us, and I don't think we should encourage that.
Okay, Christy.
The fee for the event sign is part of the recreation fees and charges bylaw. So it's both in this policy and in the fees and charges bylaw. So even if we remove it from this policy, until we do 3 more readings and adoption of the fees and charges bylaw, it will apply.
Okay, good to know. Andy.
I was just supporting what you were suggesting, Kathy, under extreme or unusual circumstances. But with what Christy just said and Stu, I'm happy to not include it at this point.
Okay. Any other comments? Anybody want to speak to this? So I'll call the question on the, oh, I've lost Chris. Call the question on the amendment. Council has the authority to waive rental fee, which I could have meant to say exceptional circumstances. I'm willing to do that. But okay, we want to include that or not? So include it, yes. Not include it. Okay, it fails. Okay, then the last thing that I wanted to add was that we would change it. Let's see, now how were we going to change it? Well, no, we were going to leave the one that says that city staff can do it with provincially or federally declared health emergencies or any other circumstance with council approval. That's what I would add that to be. So does anyone second that? Okay, Andy seconds it. Okay, so now it would read, city staff are permitted relevant messages for any purpose without charge or revenue, or I'm sorry, not any purpose, for provincially, federally declared health emergency or for any purpose with council approval. Okay, any comments on that? All in favor of that? Oh, Stu, you gotta, oh, you're voting or you're speaking?
I'd like to speak.
Okay.
Again, I don't, I'm just trying to imagine a circumstance where that might be necessary. My thoughts is that would be in some emergency situation, in which case, why even come to council over it? I mean, what couldn't we just say, or in some emergency situation? If as long as it's an emergency, then I'm happy with it. I don't think we should be calling a special meeting of council just to deal with a sign.
Yeah, that's a good point. Staff, how do you feel about that? If we just say that you can do it on your own without anybody's permission if it's an emergency of any sort?
It's just a sign.
Yeah, Christy, are you there?
Yeah, so I think the problem is that all those things I named earlier were emergencies to the people requesting they be put up. So I think better definition of what an emergency is we have the federal and provincial emergency in there with that right now. You know, my recommendation would be that if you're gonna add anything else about other usage for the sign, it's an additional point that says other uses of the sign must first be approved by council.
Yeah, that makes sense. Or what if it take health emergency out, provincially or federally declared emergency? Oh,
Yeah.
Janice and then Dirk.
I don't want to interrupt Christy. I was just going to say, we could change it. We can take the health emergency part out, but we can just change it to municipal, regional, provincial, or federal state of emergency or emergency orders.
Okay, that sounds good. Dirk?
That's pretty much exactly what I was going to say.
Oh,
More
perfect.
eloquent.
Perfect. Okay. Let's see. I think we have Cynthia in there. Cynthia, did you get that amendment?
I'd appreciate the wording for it, please.
Yeah. Janice, go again.
Just leave the video on.
I'm muted and I'm opening my agenda. And okay, so it would say city staff are permitted to post relevant messages on the community event side for any municipal, regional, provincial, or federally declared emergency
Okay. Good.
without charge and or revenue.
Oh, good. Janice makes it. And who's going to second this amendment? Andy seconds it. I think we can vote on it, right? All in favor? Good. All right, great. Okay, now back to.
Might be a little late, but you okay with that, Christy?
Oh.
Okay, good.
Okay, so back to the main policy as amended. Can we vote on that or any other comments? I think we're ready to go. All in favor? All right, good work, good decision. Okay, so now we have the Roslyn Curling Club Facility Use Agreement. And this is that we enter into an extension of the current facility use agreement with the Curling Club for 1 year. And we know the intent is to get clear operating information. Do I have a mover for this? I'm gonna move it. Stuart's gonna move it. Dirk's gonna second it. Stu, some comments?
Yeah, I'd like good information to before we enter into a long-term agreement. So this seems a sensible approach.
Okay, Dirk.
Also more eloquent than I could have said it.
Okay, and the cost, the price that they're paying is the same as last year then, right? That's not the same as what's in that agreement, is that right? Staff?
Yes, so in the recommended motion here, it does not include the CPI increase. The CPI increase was recommended if you extend for 5 years.
Okay, I think that's great. I mean, I think it's important to note that we have every intention of providing a longer term lease. You know, we just want to make sure we're all on the same page. We've got the operating stuff together. We've got a little more normal user information. and it just seems like it makes a lot of sense. So, oh, Janice, your hand is up. Sorry, I didn't see you.
Yeah, I mean, this has been an ongoing thing for a little while. I've got a few things that, you know, it's in the report. It said they've been operating at the arena for 124 years. We do have an older arena, but it's not quite that old. And I noted that that also in the report, the membership numbers said that they have 227 members. Interestingly, they reported to the Rec Task Force, which I served on, that they had 273 when upgrades of the arena complex were being discussed. So now that they need to, I find it interesting that their numbers have shrunk somewhat now. You know, I just find that the way that their lease is organized isn't very equitable for all the users and or the tax base that we have. It's a fixed price exclusive lease for a city facility. They don't pay utilities as other people who have exclusive facility leases do. Any increase of usage of the current curling sheets, whether it's by Roslyn users or other users, that revenue goes directly to the curling club and helps pay down their lease. There's no advantage to the tax base for that. So, you know, they could boom and they could fill up that facility. And I don't know why, you know, when we've spent a bunch of money to replace the plant, which is, of course, advantageous to all users. But the skating side, you know, got slammed with a 30% increase, and the curling side goes up at CPI every year. So, you know, clearly the skating side is carrying the bulk of that. Skating side increased in 2019. They increased their usage, their private rental revenues by 16% through cooperative usage amongst the groups. It doesn't matter how much usage is increased at on the curling side, because it's a fixed price lease. So, you know, it's I just really have challenges with the way that this is done. I crunched a few numbers. You know, they're current based on the lease price right now, and the 512 hours that the curling club specifically reported they used. Again, that came directly from them to the rec task force. They're paying $43.42 an hour to use the ice, whereas the adult rate in the skating side is $156.66. So it'd be $80,000 for someone to rent the skating side for the same number of hours as the curling side is. Yeah, and you know, I looked at if we were to increase their rate over the next couple of years, if we did another 5%, that would cost per member, based on 227 members, not 273. It would cost them each $4.90 more for the whole season, or 22 cents a week. And if we raised it 10%, it'd cost everybody $9.79 more for the whole season, or 44 cents a week. So, you know, I'd like to see us balance the inequity in the user fee structure at that complex, so that we can maintain that facility and have it be sustainable and usable by the public for many more years.
Okay, those are really good points for sure, and that kind of thing could figure in when we get into doing another contract. I'm going to call on Andy, then I'm going to call on Stuart. But I also understand that there's an individual in our gallery who had wanted to speak during public input, and I think he is from the skating group, so from the curling group. So I would actually like to let him speak if that's correct. But first, we'll go through council here.
So I'm thankful for Janice for putting all that information forward and doing that research. And I think that to stick with what this proposal is, to allow a one-year lease extension is a good idea, as pointed out by Christy. And I think that COVID's probably kicked them pretty hard as well over this past year, and 2 seasons really. And this coming year, hopefully, we'll have some numbers from the new plant costs. And once that's done, we're going to be in a much better position to figure out what our actual operating costs of that facility is. And everything's up in the air as far as I'm concerned in negotiating a new lease arrangement for 2022.
Okay, thanks, Andy. Stuart.
Yeah, I just wanted to commend Janice on her information, and you know, I don't have any fixed position on this. I would just like all this to be presented to me by staff, including consideration of some of the input that Janice has given, and make sure we're charging an appropriate amount for our municipal facility. And you know, I think they've been there a long time. We don't have to rush into this right now. Let's do it properly.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Who else? Okay. I'm going to let Zach speak if he still wishes to. And I'm sorry, I think we had a little bit of a glitch in there about hands going up and down. So Zach, you may speak. And thank you for joining us.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Can you see me as well?
No, we cannot.
Good, because I'm
Love
not
to.
No, to speaking to Janice's point, she does bring up some good comments. However, she's comparing, in my opinion, apples to oranges. The arena side, the skating rink, is managed by the city employees, city everything. Whereas on the curling rink side, it's all done by members that don't charge for their time. And we pay for our own ice making. and our own equipment. Okay, this isn't funded by the city at all. So those costs are not taken into account by Ms. Nightingale's statement. Any questions?
Okay, yeah, that's good input for sure. Anybody have any comments or questions for Zach while he's here? Andy and then Stuart.
I think the investment the city's made in the, in the plant and the cost of upgrade to provide ice to both the skating portion of the facility and the curling rink is really what's being talked about here. We recognize that, the costs maybe for staffing are different, but we want to make sure that we get a reasonable return, I think, on the usage of the ice. The costs are going to be not only the capital costs for the equipment, which needs to be amortized over its lifespan, but also the operational costs on an annual basis. So that has to be realistic and relative as well. I think that's what we're working towards. I don't see it being apples and oranges in that it's not operational from a staffing standpoint.
Okay, thanks, Andy. Stu and then Terry.
Yeah, I mean, I don't claim to actually know anything at all about the curling club, but I trust staff to look into it and provide me with some good information and incorporate the feedback that council has put into the process. But also, I don't think this is something we just want to impose on the curling club. This is a conversation. We will presumably come up with recommendations, and the curling club will be given a full opportunity to respond, and we'll go back and forth, and then eventually we'll have something that council can vote on. But I don't think this is something that's going to be brewed up in secret. It's going to be an open process, and presumably the curling club will get an opportunity to give full feedback on that.
Terry.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with a 1-year extension, but if I could take advantage of Zach's presence here one more time. I know that they were looking for some long-term sustainability or consistency so that they could have a long-term plan. But Zach, that the improvements that you wanted to make this year, are they wholly contingent on a 5-year planning horizon, or is this something that you guys could put off for a year and it wouldn't be too detrimental if we could?
Well, yes, there's two answers to that. We've been putting off these capital improvements for several years now because we've been on a year-to-year lease. The sustainability of the arena was up in the air for a long period of time. We appreciate the city's dumped, I want to say 600,000 in the new chiller improvements, greatly appreciated. Yes, we can postpone the capital improvements for another year, but we've already pushed them back several years now.
Okay, all right, thanks, Zach, and I'm sorry I didn't get to you earlier. Any other comments on this before I call the question? Okay, so this is for the 1-year extension on the lease. All in favor? And opposed? Terry, were you opposed or in favor?
Ooh, I'm in favor.
You're in favor. Okay, so Janice, you were opposed. I've got a little tiny bit of lag here on my screen, so I just want to make sure I get everybody right. Okay, thank you. Okay, so next up is the Community Outdoor Revitalization Grant. And this is that we direct staff to apply to Columbia Basin Trust Outdoor Revitalization Grant for upgrades to Ross Glen Park. Who would like to make that? I don't know if anybody got a chance to go back and see what the proposal was back in April of 2019, but it was there. Dirk and Janice, mover and a seconder. So Dirk, would you like to speak about it?
Yeah, actually, I wouldn't support the Ross Glen one. Just it's a lot of money from our coffers to do something that perhaps we don't need to do right now. I would prefer to put forward the number 4, the active transportation, covered parking in the square downtown. Even if that could be gotten under a grant down the road, if we could get it now, then we could use a grant down the road for some other active transportation. So I wouldn't support the Ross Glen one, but I would support the covered parking one.
Okay, so the motion as made directs staff to apply for Ross Glen. So you'll be voting against that motion. Okay, Janice. And then if this fails, you can put forward another motion.
Yeah, I actually quite like the Ross Glen Park one. I know that part of that presentation or part of that proposal was for a gazebo, but I think that primarily what we should be looking at is replacing the play structure there. It's quite dated. It's not CSA approved anymore. All the work was done in the spring of 2019 when this was first presented to us, other than updating the costs. So it is essentially shovel ready. It meets a changing demographic that we have, the growth of children in town. 2016 census says we've got 695 kids, 14 and under, and we've grown about 10% since then. So you can add at least 70 more kids to that. It addresses some increased interest in the community about outdoor activities for kids. And the other projects all have other funding possibilities available to them. There aren't many grants that support replacing, rejuvenating playgrounds, as this one does.
Okay, other comments? Anybody? And also Lower Roslyn is very neglected when it comes to children's play areas. Not much in the way of parks there. Okay, I'm going to call the question on this. So all in favor of the Ross Glen grant application? Okay, and opposed? That would be Dirk. Okay, okay. So we'll see if we get that one. We weren't successful on our downtown restroom, but there's still hope for that. Okay, so here is a report that we've been really looking forward to seeing. The traffic analysis on the Washington school zone in Thompson. So we are asked to provide some direction to staff based on some of the things that they had brought forward in that report. So I need to see what options council is interested in. Somebody wants to make a motion. Dirk does.
I feel like I'm on a roll, so I'm going to move that we do option 4. We remove the delineators and return Thompson to its original state.
Okay.
To be fair, according to this report, does not seem terribly different from its current state.
Okay, and nothing, well, let's just take that one first, right? I think we can do them kind of piecemeal, right? Okay, so that's remove the delineators on Washington or on Thompson? Where, what?
Thompson.
Thompson, sorry. Okay, do we have a seconder for removing the delineators on Thompson?
I'll second that for discussion.
Okay, okay, so Dirk, take it away.
I think a number of things. One, this has definitely created a lot of angst and negative feedback in the Thompson area. And while I think we could go with the angst and negative feedback if there were significant changes in traffic behavior on the street, the report does not look like there were significant changes. The average winter speed was 2 kilometers different. The percentages didn't seem like big enough percentages, and I don't know the numbers behind them to see if they're significant, but yeah, having an upset community along the street there for a 2 kilometer an hour diminishment in winter speed does not seem reasonable in my mind.
Okay, Andy?
I'm certainly torn on this one. Living down in this neck of the woods, and having a number of my neighbors come to me soon after they were installed and be jumping up and down about how ugly they were and restricting access because of the narrowing, which of course is why they're successful. And the fact that people are calling them ugly is that they're being noticed, and it has made a difference. I'd hope that we could come up with a better solution other than those bollards, I call them. But yeah, I'm not sure removing them is a good idea. And the other question I guess I had for Scott was the traffic study we didn't have statistics pre-bollards, did we? Because that technology didn't go into place prior to those yellow barriers being put in. So how would we know what it was prior to those yellow bollards?
Using a different block where there aren't any, I believe. Scott, do you want to comment? Oh, you're muted.
There we go.
That's better.
Good evening, everyone. That's correct. We didn't have any data previous to the installation of the delineators. In order to do that, obviously, we would have to remove the delineators and then put them back again, which would be a cost, extra cost to the taxpayers. So what I did was, or what we did as a city, is we moved our data collection around to try and give ideas of what that speed would be like if it didn't have delineators, and that's what you see in the difference in the chart. So, but again, take with a grain of salt that an intersection is going to be slower anyways, rather than a straight stretch, but.
Yeah, I guess my argument would be that it doesn't really reflect the change. Because we didn't, like, the fact that they moved it around is appreciated, but I think because we already had them located on Thompson Avenue, people were making a conscious effort to slow, or it did maybe unconscious effort. But I believe at some level they were working. So to remove them, I'm probably going to say no at this point.
Okay, Janice and then Stu.
Yeah, I'm just, I just went back and reviewed the report. I'd made some notes, but, I was looking at the difference on the chart provided by staff about the percentage of cars driving greater than 50K. So 20K over the speed limit between the area where the delineators were and the area where the delineators were not. And, it's significant. It's where the delineators are, 3.6% drove over 50K, and where the delineators weren't, this is on the Wednesday, the average on Wednesday, 21.6% did. And, as we know, our community is growing. That represents 208 daily vehicle trips that are going more than 20 kilometers an hour over the speed limit on that street. So even though the average didn't move that much, it's not going to, if most people are, if 80% are going within 10 kilometers of the speed limit, if we're slowing down the number of people who are going 20% over the speed limit, or over 20K more than the speed limit, I think that's well worth it. And so I won't vote to remove the delineators.
Okay, Stu and then Terry.
Yeah, I don't think I got anything to add to what Janice just said, but it seems to me like 20% of the traffic driving over 50 kilometers an hour is pretty ridiculous. And it, we put the delineators in and it drops down to a very small fraction. If we actually do want to slow people down, this is the best idea I've heard. Seems to work. I don't know why we would take them out.
Okay, Terry, and then I'm going to see if Chris wants to say anything before I go back to Dirk. So Terry, you're up. And Chris, you can pass and I'll go to Dirk, or we'll start round two.
Thanks. I'll start with a question and a comment, and I'm wondering if from city staff, if the complaints about the delineators on Thompson have gone down. They've been there for a while. Has that quieted down? Have people grown tired of complaining about them, or is it still pretty steady diet?
Scott here. Yeah, we haven't heard any complaints regarding the delineation since the last concerning moment in time.
Great. Thanks, Scott. Yeah. I think this is a general statement from my perspective, but I think we pay all too much homage to the automobile. And, when we think about people complaining about narrow roads and these type of strategies for reducing speed, I find those rooted in a longstanding culture of love for the automobile. And I'm happy that those delineators are there, and I'll be saying we should keep them.
Okay, Chris, do you want to speak?
Yeah, I'll choose safety over aesthetics all day long.
Okay,
So
Dirk.
I'll be voting in favor. Yeah.
Okay, Dirk, back to you.
I think the next obvious question then, will we be putting the delineators the rest of the way down Thompson? because that seems to be where people are speeding, where there are no delineators. So if we want to use this to solve the problem, then the delineators should be the total length of Thompson, not
Well, I
just.
think that would be another staff report to look at that, because that's another budget consideration. So I wouldn't expect staff to have a spot answer on that right now, because you have to find out what the cost is and all those kinds of things. So I don't know, Scott, if you want to add something, go right ahead.
So on option 2 was direct staff to maintain delineators as is and purchase and install 2 happy sad face permanent speed readers in the straight section between intersections. There was one in there with a cost consideration on that, which we already have one, so only an additional one would be needed. So that would help in the straight stretches.
Yeah, that would be a thing to try, right? To try that as and see if that helps. And if that still doesn't help, then away we go again. Okay. Oh, go ahead.
Yes, sorry, what we were investigating with the current one, it actually slows a lot of people down. It's almost like what I try to explain is they're responsible for the speed that everybody's seeing. If somebody's speeding and there's somebody behind them, you see it right there, right? So, there's different angles to this. Of course, if we can always put a delineation, as long as we're enclosing the area and not keeping it open so people can just go around them, right? That's the problem. There could be opportunity to put with that sign a center line similar to what we've done with Washington during the spring, summer, and fall. Different things like that at minimal cost.
Okay, that's good. Chris?
That was my point exactly. If we were to remove them, I would like them replaced with what we have on Washington. I think that's an excellent solution to it.
Yeah, I mean, but they went in with a fair degree of expense and ICBC grant money, which we might have to return if we remove them, unless we deploy them someplace else that ICBC approves of. So I don't know. Okay, I'm going to go to, or Scott, you want to speak again? Okay, Janice and then Andy.
Of course, I'd like to ask Scott a question, now that he doesn't want to speak. I'm just looking at the report. Option 2 is, as Scott mentioned, direct staff to maintain the delineators and have 2 happy sad face permanent speed readers. I'm looking option 2. Oh, never mind. I found it. I was looking at Washington Street. I didn't understand why option 2 didn't have any cost.
All right,
I answered my own question. Thank you, Scott. You're the most helpful staff member there today.
Wow. No, we're all a team.
Perfect. Let's see. I think Andy, you are next. It's really helpful to me if you guys use a little hand thing, because you move all around on my screen. But anyway, go ahead, Andy.
Scott, the 2 readers you're referring to, the electronic readers, would one face each direction then? One it'd be what, east-west? One coming east, another one going west?
That is correct. Yeah, the happy face readers, that would be correct in certain straight edge areas where we find the most speeding from our analysis.
Yeah. Okay. And those are permanently mounted, right?
Yeah, I was going to ask that too. So they're permanent, so we can't move them around the community to juice up everybody else's happy and smiley faces.
So the way that this is set up is that, again, we have one already. We're requesting for a council decision to purchase another one for here for permanent. And if you look at the Washington for the winter time, we would like to put additional ones there with council's direction. We still have 2 which are not solar powered, they're battery powers. Those are the ones that we move around the community.
Perfect. Yeah, that's good. Okay. Okay, so right now the option is 4, which is to remove them. So it sounds like there's not a huge appetite for that, but we're going to vote that question, and then we'll have another motion. So all in favor of removing the bollards on Thompson? Dirk gets to vote twice because he's got 2 hands. And opposed? Opposed, everybody else. Okay. You're having a rough night, Dirk. I'm sorry. So, one thing I just want to comment on, that I do feel like our approach with this as a city was not as good as it could have been, particularly given all the people that were so, involved in this. What I was going to say, depending on how the conversation went tonight, was that we still look at getting input from people on that street, because a lot of them have said, oh, it should be stop signs. We know ICBC doesn't suggest that. Or speed humps, because and honestly, they didn't really get as good, the speed bumps that were put in there a million years ago didn't get as good a test as they probably ought to have. So, part of me says, well, maybe we still need to consult with the people. But on the other hand, seeing the report and seeing that this is actually kind of working, makes me think that it's not all bad. So I'm going to say Janice, and then Stuart, and then Dirk. So Janice, go ahead.
Well, I think that staff has provided us with the speed reader. They've provided us with some really good data. So we know that actually speeding is a problem. It's not just anecdotal. It's not just a few people complaining. And I think that we can see that the bollards have made a difference. We can see that people drive slower where the bollards are or the delineators are, and they drive faster where they aren't. So, I'm very happy with, this has gone on for over a year, and I'm very happy with the work that staff has done to provide us with this to let us make better decisions. We know that if we go back for more public input, doesn't matter what we say, people will find a way to complain about it.
Yeah, you think? They'll never be happy?
I
I
think.
can always dream. Stuart.
Yeah, I just like making the decisions based on what's actually going on out there. I think having these speed readers and seeing the information is really illuminating. Even to me, I hear people complaining about speeding in these various places, but even to see the difference between, how many people are speeding and how fast they're going on Thompson, even compared to Washington, where I also hear a lot of complaints, but the information we're getting is that it's nowhere near as a significant problem on Washington. But I think this gives us a good baseline to make evidence-based decision making.
Yeah.
If we see, if we hear complaints elsewhere, we can actually work out what's going on, see how fast people are going, what proportion of them, and we can act accordingly. And I think we know that putting in these restrictions, they actually do slow people down. It's pretty significant. Going to asking people what they think, they're probably just a bunch of speeders.
Maybe they are. Okay, Dirk, and then Andy. And we're going to need to get another motion on the table here, so we got to keep going.
I think my only point would be that follow up to Stu's. Obviously, we need more data, not just my speedy senses, but speeding is an issue in an awful lot of places in town. I know Park in Columbia, I could name names, and people speed through that, through the yield sign all the time. And I think that, I don't think I want to get into a position where bollards are our only solution and we see them all over town. I do think that at some point we need education strategy so that people stop doing this, because it drives me nuts. Anyways. My point is, people speed in a lot of places, and if Stu's request for data turns up that people are going 50 plus in many places, bollards all over the place doesn't seem like the solution.
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, Andy, and then Janice, and I hope one of you wants to put forward a motion, and then we can continue doing that.
I'll go. I can organize that. The other thing I wanted to mention too, that within a short number of years, that whole Thompson Washington intersection down here is going to be changed because of the road access into the golf course. So at some point that'll become a reality, and that intersection will be under scrutiny, and who knows, maybe four-way stop is the only way to deal with that intersection with the increased traffic that's going to be coming out of the golf course. So anyways, just to point that out, that this issue will likely be entertained down the road. I'm happy to put a motion forward that first off, we're keeping the bollards, and secondly, I'd like to suggest we purchase the second smiley face sign as Scott refers to it.
Okay, and do I have a seconder? Like Janice seconds. She was going to make that motion. Okay, anybody want to speak to that? Andy, do you want to say anything else about that? We've kind of talked quite a bit about it. Anything else? Janice, would you like to say something? No? Okay, Stuart.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to Dirk's point about bollards everywhere. I mean, I find them fairly ugly as well. I mean, there's no other way to describe them. I mean, they're pretty offensive looking. But we have these huge boulevard-sized streets in our community, and people have fancy cars and they like to drive them as fast as the conditions allow. And until we have the budget to do a whole bunch of narrowing, like we've done on Washington, which would be really expensive, and wouldn't it be great if we could narrow all our streets like that and had that huge budget? But we're probably not going to do that anytime soon. So, the bollards are just a cheap way of doing it, and there really aren't any, I don't have a whole lot of faith in public education is going to get people to drive differently. They're going to drive to the conditions. If we want to restrict the roads to the point where people actually slow down, this is the way we do it. And hopefully we'll have some good evidence to make sure we do that where we get the best, the best effect for that.
No, there are other traffic calming ideas out there, like the speed humps or like, some other things we might find. If there's other areas we want to address, we might try something else, right? It's not, we're not wedded to ugly bollards everywhere in town. We could try something else somewhere. Okay,
many of us have been to other communities where they've aggressively slowed down traffic. I mean, you narrow the streets, you put in roundabouts, you put in speed humps, you do all these things. I mean, I grew up in neighborhoods where every street was like that. That's what you do if you want to slow people down. We have these huge streets where you could drive 100 kilometers an hour up St. Paul if you wanted to. It's like the highway width. That's why people speed.
Right. Yeah. I'm just saying there are other options, and you just mentioned a bunch of them. But if we have other areas that we want to address, it doesn't all have to be bollards. Okay, I'm going to call the question on basically option 2 with 1 sign. That's what we're looking at on Thompson. Okay, all in favor? And opposed? There's opposed. Okay. All right. So now we need to think about Washington. Oh, Scott, speak to us, please.
Thank you. I was just going to remind you about Washington. That's all.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
I was just going to remind you about Washington now, come to think of it. Okay, Council, we have got Janice with a motion about Washington.
Yeah, I think that the dynamic mid-road signs have made a big difference there. I know Stu mentioned that he didn't think the problem on Washington was enough, but again, I took those percentages in the daily traffic flow, and Washington and Jubilee, which of course is right by the school, there are 203 daily vehicle trips at 20K over the speed limit.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Can't remember if that was the summer or up to. That was the maximum. I just took the maximum traffic flow and the maximum percentage of trips that went by over 50 kilometers an hour, and it was up to 203 a day. So it's right beside our school. Holy smokes! So my motion would be for option 1 on Washington, is to have those dynamic signage during the summer and the 2 readers in the winter. Hopefully people aren't sliding past them down the hill, but Public Works does a great job of making sure that doesn't happen too. So yeah, I think that would be that's a good solution. Those are 2 of our main arterial roads through town. I know we're working on trying to keep some non-local traffic off of Washington. One assumes that if we're successful doing that, here I made a motion. Now I'm just talking.
Yeah,
I just stop.
We need a seconder. We need a seconder.
Yeah,
so who's going to
second it? So I can.
Okay.
There we go.
Terry seconds it. Okay, Janice, would you like to say anything else about your motion? It's good. It's just getting.
The only thing I really have left to say at this point is that if we are successful at reducing some of the non-local traffic up and down Washington, are those this happy sad traffic fake signs, are they movable with some expense? Then that would be a question for staff.
Scott here, absolutely. And I would say minimal expense and anything's movable.
Okay, thanks. So Terry, as the seconder, would you like to comment?
Nothing to add really, other than to say, yeah, let's keep those, Kathy, to double up what you said a few minutes ago. I think there's multiple ways that we can continue to re-educate and redesign our town and put deterrents up. So we just keep chipping away at it 6 different ways. And yes, keep what we've got going on in Washington.
Okay, great. And then Stuart and then Andy.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify Janice's interpretation of my remarks. I didn't say that there wasn't a problem on Washington. I just said it was relatively less than Thompson, just based on the data, and that I drive Washington all the time, and I've observed that the center line signs seem to be very effective in slowing people down, including myself.
Yeah, I think they are. We've heard from people around town. They really like those. So that was a great addition. Andy.
Oh, one of my biggest beefs with Washington has been winter traffic. And I still think that we need to come up with a better solution to reduce the volume of traffic that's headed to the Hill on a powder day, for example.
Okay, so I'm going to stop you there because I want to vote on this motion because you're on to a new subject now.
Okay.
So we now have, this is for Washington for the option 1 with the 2 readers and all that. Any other comments on that? All in favor? Okay, good. All right. Andy, do you want to make a motion about something else? Like changing the position of the sign, Columbia and
yeah,
Washington?
I'd like to know if staff has any indication of the effectiveness of the sign that they put in last year, trying to redirect traffic at the highway rather than using Washington to access the ski hill, for example.
Either, yeah, we have data recorded for pre-sign installation. This year, we should have some more data. And again, knowing that these are both COVID years and we haven't really have any data out of a non-COVID year. But with the sign strategy, I hope to have more data to say, hey, is this working or not?
So
Yeah.
Scott, I have a question for you on the sign. I know the sign at some points when you come along Columbia and you make the turn up Washington and then you see the sign that says go the other way. Was it on Columbia? So say go to the highway? Okay.
It's right on the corner, bright
So
colors.
people can actually make the decision to go straight because I know at some point in the past it was after you'd already committed to going up Washington. Okay, so that's great. So maybe we don't need any motion on that, Andy, or did you have an idea?
Well, I'd like, I guess with more information from staff, I'd like us to continue to look at, monitor that issue. I think that one of the most dangerous times of the year is the winter time on that street. And of course, it often the access to the ski hill for the morning coincides with kids going to school. So, I think it's something that we really have to be aware of. In the last council, I remember a conversation around the idea of closing the street for a portion of time so that we wouldn't have two-way traffic coming in off the highway, coming down, for example. And maybe there's opportunities to entertain the idea of literally redirecting traffic so there is no traffic other than local traffic going up Washington during school, that half hour, that 45 minutes that's so critical and crucial. Anyways, I look forward to having staff continue to monitor that situation, and I think it's something that is a concern.
Let's have snow clearing happen between 1st and 2nd, right during the school hours when people would be going to the ski hill. So then the snow clearing, it's closed for that. Scott, you want to comment?
Yeah, we already have plans for putting up the data collection for this winter. Now that we've been directed with the signage also, so we'll get some data on that.
That's great. I just have to say, I really appreciate the expertise that you've brought to this subject, Scott, and the new monitoring equipment I think is really going to be useful for us going forward. Oh, Terry, your hand is up.
You just stole my words. I just really appreciate the data and the efforts being taken by staff around this. It's fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, anything else on the traffic report? It was comprehensive and it was excellent. And we're moving on to city reports. Okay, so does anyone want to talk about the building report? If you want to talk about any reports, put your little hand up, because otherwise we're just going to go right through them. Building report, building inspection by type, step code energy rebates, public works report. I want to comment on that. Picnic tables and everything that's downtown and the bike wash station and all that stuff, the lot, the private lot next to Revolution, that all looks great. So thanks to the property owners there, as well as the city work that went into that, because it's really, really nice. There's water production report. There's bylaw enforcement report, updated task list. Oh, Dirk, your hand's up. What would you like to say?
Yeah, excuse me, just for the bylaw, it's still like really low on tickets issued compared to warnings and education. Are we anticipating a shift towards more ticketing and less educating? Like, is this a grace period? How is that going to transition if it is?
Staff?
Yeah, we are currently following the plan for bylaw enforcement. Of course, our bylaw enforcement officer just arrived this summer, so we're implementing everything as per the timeline when the bylaw adjudication bylaw was presented to council.
Okay, great, thanks. Andy. No, Andy, Terry, sorry.
If this is the wrong spot, forgive, but Scott, could you give us a quick overview again on the reservoir and its status? I get a lot of questions about that, and it might be nice if the press or we could get a bit of an explanation out to the world at large on what's going on at the reservoir.
Got some information going in the newsletter tomorrow, but Scott, give us the update.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have already started the process of doing some more communication regarding the wet reservoir. As you know, we've had an extremely dry season this year. Just to give some history of how it works, Ophir does feed into Star Gulch, and Star Gulch feeds into our plant. It just so happens at this time, way back in last fall, we were notified by Flynn Rod, the province, that our dam, which helps secures our reservoir, was put at a dangerous status. Nothing to be too concerned about as faulty, but we had to make arrangements to improve our reservoir. With doing that, we applied for a grant and we got the grant, and that works begins in probably, we're looking at the beginning of October. So once that is established, and it just so happens that the water's low right now, it's good timing, and we can actually implement that capital works with not too much addressing the residents of Roslyn. Now, even with that said, we don't have a lot of water, obviously, compared to what we've had in years. The good news is Ophir is looking great. We're topped, we're full, we're feeding straight into the water treatment plant, but we're not ready to go down from stage 3 water restrictions yet. We just don't know what the fall is going to look like. We're getting rain now, but until we get a constant overflow and this capital project is complete, then that's when we can say we're safe to go.
Okay, that's great. And I think you just answered Andy's question about water restrictions. That's perfect. Okay, so nothing else on any of the reports. And Terry, you're absolutely right. That is the right place to talk about it. I just went through kind of quickly to see if there was anything. Okay, we're moving on to a request from correspondence, and this is from the New Market group. They want to close Spokane from First to the north of Sourdough Alley. So that's like about 2.5 feet worth of street closure, I think, on October 6th during the afternoon, evening for their final market. Do we have a mover? Dirk moves it. Chris seconds it. Any comments on this? Nope. All good. All in favor? Okay, good. Okay, we're now into members' reports. I'm going to start with Dirk.
Okay, I got one that I can read tonight. The Rosslyn Arena Society, they had a meeting last night, and I spoke with Ona about that, and they have said the Rosslyn Arena Society is regrouping after the summer and reviewing their mission, vision, and priorities. They would like to have some direction with respect to their working relationship with the city, so that they could set strategic plans themselves and take on new projects. They note that large grants are a challenge to qualify for in their current capacity, and they're interested in learning more about how other local volunteer groups are structured. So heritage, library, those sorts of things, if they can get tips and tricks and perhaps structure in a similar fashion. They do have a new website as another avenue for information dissemination for those not on social media. And they're working on a plan regarding reopening the concession for the season. They have talked to the city about that and are going through the works. Also, again, as with almost every volunteer group, they're looking for more volunteers and fresh blood. And that looks like they're going to be putting together a little promo video for the lounge work that has been completed to date. And that's about it for me.
Great, okay. Well, I think they should probably check in with staff about, I mean, you know, they're talking about like the Heritage Commission, the Sustainability Commission, those are, you know, set up by council. You know, everything else is either a contractual relationship because they're operating in a city facility or they're nonprofit groups. So everybody's kind of different. There isn't a standard way. So I'm not quite clear on their question, but maybe they can talk with staff about that. Yes, Dirk.
I think they're just looking for a more formal working relationship so that they could plan themselves a little bit further ahead. And
Okay, so they're talking about wanting to like get involved in sort of the asset management planning kinds of ideas about working with the city on that facility.
yeah, I'm not sure that operations is something that they'd be able to do, but really they just, I think something a little more cemented than current.
Okay, well, maybe they should talk to Christy and staff. You chime in if you want them to talk with someone else. Because if they're thinking about other projects they want to do, that does come to sort of a facilities thing, not an operations, but a facilities kind of question. Christy?
Yeah, I'll speak with the RAS. I am speaking with them now about the concession. You know, we have spoken with them before about various user groups. You know, they would be similar to the RCAC in their function with the Miners Hall, which the agreement we have there is when they're just related to the use of the facility, which we have with the concession with the RAS. So I'm not sure cementing something for that group would be an agreement, but unless it's operating a facility, I can't think of what agreement officially we would put into place, but I can speak with the RAS.
Yeah, I wonder if they're just kind of interested in finding out, you know, what sort of grants we're going after that maybe that would be appropriate for arena things. I don't know, but yeah, okay, Christy, we leave it with you. Okay, okay. Let's see, Terry, you're next.
Okay, yeah, pretty quiet. Attended various plenaries at UBCM. That was my first kick at that, so that was interesting. I was forced to come in and out a little bit due to work, but that was good. And nothing from the library. We missed invites, etc. So we've got that straightened out with the library, and I'll be able to report back on them next time. I had a little episode on the weekend that I'd like to, I'm busy as a citizen going to ICBC. I was parked outside the Hillis household and the Centennial, or the Ball Diamond there for about 5 minutes. And my car and another one were damaged by fly balls. I was pleased to learn that, Christy, we insist on liability insurance, so I'm chasing that one down. But a question out of that one is there anything, the nets are pretty ineffectual, and should we possibly, I don't know, put warning signs up on that street? You know, if there's a ball game on, you know, park at your own risk. Anyways, that's my little tale of woe from the ball tournament this week. And if Christy's got any questions or comments on that, I'm happy to take it. Otherwise, I'm just going to be finding out what it's like to try and recover some money from the ball diamond or from the ball tournament organizer for my deductible. as is another person.
Oh, that's unfortunate. You must have had a real slugger on the team there.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah, okay, that's it for your members report. Okay, Andy.
Couple of meetings last week. Regional district is ramping up. September and October are often very busy months. Kathy brought a point up today, a question that's being queried around about the rollout for the organics curbside program and the concerns around the bear situation. And as we know, it's been an unusual year, and man, the amount of bears that are in their community right now is yeah, unusual. Way more than I think we've ever experienced, at least in the years I've been here. Just wanted to bring everybody up to speed a little bit on that, and I'll just do it verbally right now, but I'll provide more in writing soon. 1/3 of the 1,600 households in Roslyn are slated to get bear-resistant containers. So when the application went in for funding for the actual curbside containers, it was recognized at Regional District. Janine Dougal is our point person down there, the manager of the program. And Janine has confirmed that there's 1/3 of the 1,600 containers will be bear resistant. Now, you could be argued right now that every resident needs a bear resistant container. And that is something that I've had conversations with Janine and we will be ongoingly. Those containers are about $200 each. And right now we have grants to help support the cost of the initial purchase of containers. So there's options to be considered, and this program is enough in the wings and in development that there's some opportunity to be flexible. So that's the timing of us potentially, or members in the community looking to create our community, a bear smart community, is good timing. We are in a position to be able to entertain the idea of how to roll out a program like this. The costs to our landfill, and I pointed this out before, that 40% of our garbage is organic wastes. So there's no question that it's so critical that we develop a program to compost. So curbside has proven to be the best way to do it. However, under the circumstances, maybe there's other options. I don't know. There's certainly forging ahead with curbside. And of course, curbside has been now in the boundary for quite some time. So Grand Forks and other communities over there have had curbside pickup for quite some time. And they have bears as well. So there is ways to look at this that I think offer some flexibility. And depending how we move forward to strike a bear smart committee, and develop towards a bear smart community, I think there's options there to consider. And certainly our regional district staff are willing to work with the city on this. It's going to be upwards of 2023 before this program is actually going to roll out. So we've got a while to look at it. Next year is going to be pivotal. It's putting a lot of the infrastructure in place, working with the regional district of Central Kootenay, because that's actually where the site is going to be located, the actual composting site. The transfer station is going to be at McKelvey Creek. So everything from the lower Columbia communities will go to McKelvey first, and then it'll be transferred over to Selmo, which is going to be a location of the regional district site, Central Kootenay site. So those kind of details are interesting in the logistics of putting it together. But again, for Roslyn, I think we're in a position to be able to offer input, and that's important at this time. The board approved on a last board meeting last week an alternative approval process for the capital projects for the waste management budget. Substantial money needs to be sought to support the capital projects that are going to go ahead in the next few years, which in some of them do support this curbside program. So the McKelvey Creek upgrade is critical to to support this curbside program. So that's going to go ahead. We have some grants. We're hoping to get more, but it's still a substantial amount of money that's required. And again, I'll put some more details in writing so people know what's going on. The other highlight item that I just wanted to point out was a really nice announcement by Fortis in the regional district that they're going to head and extend a 2-year agreement in regards to the senior energy specialist. Freya Phillips, who was hired by Fortis and works directly as with the regional district staff and at our office in Trail, has been working hard in developing programs and such as a electric car purchase program for the regional district. We have 4 now, and looking to expand that. Charging stations at both Grand Forks and Trail. The other thing she's working on is, of course, the STEPCO, bringing that into the regional district, and a number of other projects. She's been very involved. So really, really great that Fortis saw the value in having someone in her capacity, and that is a program that is financed completely by Fortis. So it's at no cost to us in supporting the regional district, but we also will benefit for sure from having that person down there. So yeah, so that's what I've got so far for this month. And as I said, there's lots of meetings forward.
Okay, thank you. We'll
Any
look forward
questions?
we'll look forward to your written report. I think Chris might have a question. Just give, oh, no, okay, your hand's up there. Okay, Stuart.
I don't have anything to report this week.
Okay, Janice.
Yeah, I've just got a few things. We met with Minister Chen from the BC Ministry of Families and State. And I want to thank Terry and Chris and Kathy, as well as our CAO, for joining me on that call. It was very productive. We've already received some additional information on provincial funding and growth opportunities for the childcare industry in Rawson. I'd like to think it's because we had such a great call. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but yeah, it was a good call. And I think anytime you get a direct email for an assistant to the minister who actually replies back to you when you send them something, you have to call that a win after a 20-minute phone call. So that was very good. So thank you everybody for your backing up. Along with that, I've had 2 meetings with the Rawson Economic Development Task Force, and we've already communicated the new provincial funding opportunities to the existing daycares in town to see if there is any expansion opportunities there. And we're currently holding, so we thought we'd start with just the easiest ones. I would add there's also an additional childcare facility that's going to be in the French school. So we're following up with them. We didn't include them in our initial survey, but we are following up to them to see if there's any opportunity there to expand their offerings. One of the benefits of having the province on side is that they're really pushing for early childhood education and having daycares in school situations so that there's some continuity for the kids. And it's a long-term investment so that those programs stay in the community long-term. The other thing the EDTF is doing is we're currently having information meetings with all our regional partners to determine what their priorities are in Rawson and where we might fit in other than childcare, if there is anything. And with Terry, I attended UBCM virtually for the week of the 13th through the 17th. There were some great workshops on climate change mitigation, sustainable municipal financial plans. I might be the only person who thought that was really exciting, but I did. Housing and growth planning and opportunities. The great thing about having the meeting in a virtual sphere is that I can go back, and I'm currently going back and listening to some of the workshops that I didn't attend originally with. And yeah, so it's really, you know, miss the opportunity to have those face-to-face meetings and build those relationships, but it sure is nice to be able to double back and go to every workshop instead of having to pick and choose out of 3 every day. So yeah, that's it for the last couple of weeks. Thank you.
Good. Chris?
Thanks, everybody. On September 13th, I had a Heritage Commission meeting. We're working on cleaning and repairing the headstones at the cemetery. It's kind of the biggest project now, along with a comprehensive inventory of anything that is broken there or needed repair. It's quite a big project, and it's very interesting because we're uncovering bodies. We're uncovering more and more information about the people that are there and how they got there. So it's quite an interesting project. Look for a new commemorative bench there at the entrance coming soon. We've got a grant to do it, so we're working on a couple of different options for that, along with potential to work with the our Arts Council on creating a nice artistic bench. Coming soon also is the next reference book from the Heritage Commission, Rawson's First 100 Years. It's a republication of it. So that hopefully we can get that out in early 2022. And I learned something there as well. The building at hole number 10 at the Redstone Golf Course. I up until recently thought it was the old clubhouse, but it's really called the Valley House, which housed people traveling from on the Dewdney Trail. So it was actually a place to stay. So the first Airbnb at the turn of the century. On the 17th, I had the Tourism Rosslyn AGM, and I just got to say that our tourism company or tourism entity here, Tourism Rosslyn, has done an excellent job in growing our exposure during our regulated travel times and limited opportunity. Coupled with this is developing relationships and building assets to further our goal. I mean, we're becoming, if not, we already are one of the premier BC tourism destinations. So just a shout out and a kudos to the group and how good of a job they're doing. And then a whole week of UBCM meetings, which I found quite interesting, and I look forward to being able to do that in person again. Just really, although it was well done, doing it in person is much more effective, I think. And that's it for me. Thanks.
Yeah, that's great. Well, you guys have covered UBCM, which is great. I do want to thank Janice because you did a great job with preparing the briefing paper and presenting it to the Minister of Childcare. And we got some good tips, and I think you got some great contacts, which is, a big win there. So that's super. The conference was really interesting for those of you who weren't there. There were 2 policy papers, Finance and Climate Change and the Municipal Pension Plan, which were quite interesting. There were good sessions and workshops. The Truth and Reconciliation session was good. Housing, tourism, modernizing forest policy was particularly interesting, and very lively debate with the question periods were good. Resilient communities and the 6 hours of resolution debate, which they got this close to ours and then ended it right before ours, which was too bad. And then we also heard from various ministers and the Premier. So there's a lot of good work going on. I'm really impressed with the provincial government and how much they've been doing. So it's great. Lots of Zoom time, but I thought the virtual format worked well. But boy, it'll sure be nice to get back to doing it in person. You miss that, that sort of brainstorming and connecting with people. So, oh, hey, I just see breaking news. Liberals projected to form government. Interesting. Just flashed across my screen. There was a Midtown project meeting and then we covered the regular topics. There's also hope that they'll get the roof on by November, but it's looking kind of optimistic. But I have to say, when I came home from the city barbecue around 6:30 on my bike, I went by there and there were still people working on site 6:30 at night on a Thursday. So you never know. The IHA and Mayor's Vaccine Roundtable has been picked up again. They've been doing it every other week. They're going to start doing it for each week because there have been, some pretty scary numbers in the interior. They're hopefully declining, but still worried about, how that's going. And of course, the ongoing thing of, something like 90% of the people who are hospitalized are unvaccinated. And there are many seriously ill people who are under 40. So that message still needs to get out there that this is nothing to be, nothing to be toyed with. Unvaccinated, this is an interesting stat, unvaccinated people are 34 times more likely to need hospitalization than vaccinated. So that's a pretty sobering thought. Today I had a conversation with the Wild Safe BC local guy, local gal, Shay, and India Dangle, who wants to form the Bear Smart community group. She's quite enthusiastic, so it was good, and there will be a report coming to council for next steps, and that's probably coming up in October, which is great. Just want to remind everybody the museum is having their artisan market and BC Culture Days, September 25th and 26th. If you want to get out there, we did approve that at the last meeting. There was kind of a little mini fruit gleaning and pressing that happened. Many thanks to volunteers and residents who actually did pick their trees. I was out looking, and a lot of the trees that are on those maps as city property are no longer there, which is great. And I think we should consider, not tonight, but consider when we start looking at our bear plan, to having the city remove all fruit trees that are on city property and hopefully replant something that isn't a fruit bearing tree. And I talked to the mayor of Fernie about a plan that they have there, and it's not done through the city of Fernie. It's another organization. I've asked her for more details. There's I don't know if it's a foundation or something. It actually incent homeowners to replace trees by giving them trees or giving them money to replace trees. So trying to get more information on that. But also I want to thank Anne Demude, who organized the fruit pressing down at Larry and Audrey Dole's house, who were the hosts, are always great. And also Russell Vinegar, who's part of the SC. He was the presser extraordinaire. So that was great volunteer effort. Our mapping system needs some serious help. Russell actually has some ideas about changing it. It's outdated. So, and then finally, I want to thank Christy for organizing the city barbecue. I have to say the burgers prepared at Red were way better than the burgers that we flipped at Lions Campground. So I think all of staff would appreciate it if we do that kind of setup again. We just need to go on a summer date where it isn't so bloody cold. And that's it from me. So I think we are good. Anybody have anything else, or we can have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Motion to adjourn, Chris, and everybody. Okay, we're good. All right. Thank you, everyone. Talk to you later.